clearly not a fan. Joel Trachtman is Professor of International Law at Tufts University's Fletcher Law School in the United States. He's consulted for a number of governments and international organisations, including the UN, the World Bank and the OECD. He joins us from just outside Boston. Welcome to DW. Does President Trump actually have the power to withdraw the US from the WTO?
We're really not certain. I think that the best answer to that question is that he does not, that the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution gives the power to regulate commerce to our Congress, and that our Congress has not delegated the power to regulate in the form of withdrawing from the World Trade Organization to the president, and so that he does not have that power.
So if he could get it through Congress, what difference, what effect would American withdrawal from the WTO have on world trade?
Well, presumably President Trump would feel even more free, which would be a lot, more free than he currently feels to impose tariffs as he wishes without regards to the United States commitments. As I suggest, he's already done that to a large extent under the national security pretext of our statutes and also of an exception in WTO law. Second, the United States would not be participating in WTO dispute settlement. And importantly to the United States would have no rights to make claims to other states, to request those other states to comply with their obligations. So we would see a return to what you might call the Wild West of retaliation and counter-retaliation.
Right, but we're a long way from that. Let's talk about the NAFTA negotiations, because Donald Trump is at least being consistent. This is a president who is not a fan of multilateral trade deals. He described the North America Free Trade Agreement as the worst trade deal maybe ever signed anywhere and a killer of US jobs. Here is what I can't understand about this. This is a three-way deal between Canada, the United States and Mexico. How has Mr. Trump been able to turn what was a three-way deal into two bilateral deals, US, Canada and US-Mexico?
Well, in order to turn it into two bilateral deals, he would have to withdraw the United States from the existing agreement and enter into new agreements with the two states. But let me say that what he has negotiated with Mexico, he concluded preliminary negotiations with Mexico a couple of days ago. What he's concluded is economically identical in most respects to the existing NAFTA agreement. So it makes it strange for him to claim that it was the worst deal ever when his renegotiation replicates most of what was in that deal.
But what I find odd about this is that having done that, Mexico sat back while the United States and Canada hammered out their agreements, which sounds like Mexico just saying yes to anything that those two agree in what, as I say, was supposedly a three-way deal. I don't quite understand how that works. Well,
it's important to Mexico to maintain even a bilateral trade relationship with zero tariffs, which is what the North American Free Trade Agreement does, with the United States. And it's also important to Canada to retain that. And they're both willing to make some concessions in order to retain that core free trade arrangement. And so it may be that Canada gives up on some modest commitments with respect to anti-dumping duties. Mexico gave some modifications on what would constitute a North American automobile for purposes of being eligible for zero tariffs. So they're willing to do a lot, and I think this is President Trump's art of the deal negotiation style, where he prefers to go bilateral, prefers to negotiate in a context where United States power might be applied most effectively. Right. But he doesn't seem to know what he wants very well, and he doesn't seem to be getting things that really relate to the concerns that he's expressed.
So, as far as we understand, the negotiations with Canada have got nowhere. They're going to resume next week. Is it clear who the winners and losers would be if no new NAFTA deal is reached and the US does make good on its promise to raise tariffs on Canadian car imports?
Well, first of all three countries would be harmed. There would be particular industries within each country that would be helped, but most industries would be harmed. The United States and the rest of North America would be a weaker competitor. Our production in North America would be less efficient. And United States consumers would pay higher prices, and Canadian and Mexican consumers would pay higher prices because of the reintroduction of tariffs that haven't been in existence. Remember that most complex production takes place using long supply chains. And we now produce things in North America. A Volkswagen Passat made in Tennessee uses upholstery and dashboards that come from Mexico, transmissions and engines that come from other places. And if you start imposing tariffs on those things, it makes the production more expensive and less competitive in a global setting.
I see. That's very clear. Professor Joel Trachtman, thank you so much.